I was never supposed to be on the dark web. That kind of place isn't for people like me. Or so I always thought. You know the kind. The type of person who has a stable job, a solid group of friends, and who spends their free time binging Netflix series and casually browsing Reddit. I wasn't a thrill seeker. Wasn't one of those internet users who constantly chased after conspiracy theories or searched for morbid curiosities. But, as people like to say, curiosity killed the cat. That phrase haunted me afterward, though it never quite felt accurate. It wasn't curiosity that killed me, at least not physically. But something else was murdered in those nights spent browsing the dark web. My sense of safety. My understanding of what was real and what wasn't. There are some things you can't unsee. Some roads you can't go down without losing something vital in the process. The first time I ventured into the dark web, it was purely innocent. I'd heard whispers about it for years, through threads and casual internet conversations. People talked about the illicit things you could find there: drugs, illegal weapons, human trafficking rings. All those dark, forbidden things that made the dark web sound like a horror show. But I wasn't interested in any of that. I was interested in the fringe stories, the ones that talked about strange, forgotten corners of the web. Cryptic websites where you could supposedly find videos that didn't make sense or see live streams that never should have been. I thought it was all myth, urban legends that only existed to scare gullible browsers like myself. But something about it drew me in. I took every precaution. VPN, multiple layers of encryption, proxy servers, you name it. I wasn't stupid. I knew what I was getting into, or at least, I thought I did. At first, the dark web was underwhelming. Most of it was cluttered with dead links or shady websites trying to scam people. Sure, I found some marketplaces offering illegal stuff, but nothing I hadn't expected. After about an hour of digging through threads and bouncing between forums, I was starting to think I'd been duped. Maybe those creepy stories I'd heard were just that, stories. I almost logged off for the night. Almost. Then, I stumbled across a strange URL. It wasn't a regular address. Nothing like the other tour pages I'd been visiting. It was a series of random letters and numbers, almost like someone had smashed their keyboard to create it. No description, no title, just a string of characters sitting in the middle of a conversation thread, as if the person who posted it had left it there by accident. Naturally, I clicked it. My curiosity won out over my common sense. The page that loaded was unsettling. It was old, like something from the early days of the internet, but not in a nostalgic way. The background was plain white, and the text was written in black, blocky font. No images, no flashy design, no graphics at all. It felt sterile, empty. The only thing on the page was a single line of text. "Welcome, traveler. Do you wish to see what lies behind the mask?" I stared at the sentence for a while. It felt like a joke, like someone was trying to spook me. There were no other buttons, no links, nothing to click except the back button. And so, that's what I did. I hit the back button, figuring it would take me back to the thread I'd found the link in. Nothing happened. I clicked again. Still nothing. The page didn't change. My internet connection was fine. I could still move the cursor, but I couldn't leave the page. I tried to close the browser, but the window wouldn't close. It was like my computer was frozen, but only on that page. I could still move between tabs, but none of the other sites I had visited were there anymore. A cold chill ran down my spine. It was a familiar sensation, that primal feeling when you know something is wrong, but you can't explain why. I hit the back button again, and again. Still nothing. I was getting desperate. I hit the back button 5, 6, 7 more times in rapid succession, hoping that I could somehow force my way out. The screen flickered for a moment, and then the page changed. Relief flooded me, but only for a moment. The page I'd returned to wasn't the one I expected. It looked like the same site, but something was off. The text had shifted. It was no longer black, but a dark, sickly red, and it was written in a language I didn't recognize. The characters were twisted, unnatural, like the letters had been distorted beyond recognition. I squinted at the screen, trying to make sense of it, but there was no point. It was gibberish. Then I noticed something else. There was a sound coming from my speakers, a faint static, like the background noise of an old TV set. But beneath the static, I could hear something else, a whisper. It was so quiet at first that I thought I was imagining it, but the longer I listened, the clearer it became. Words, repeated over and over again in a soft, almost sing-song voice. Back, back, back. I snapped out of my trance and clicked the back button again, this time with more force. The static grew louder, the whispers repeating faster. My heart was racing, and I started to panic. Clicking the back button felt useless, like I was stuck in a loop I couldn't escape. The flickering grew more violent, and the page warped in front of my eyes. And then, all at once, the screen went black. For a moment, I sat there in stunned silence. I thought the power had gone out, but my desk lamp was still on, casting an eerie glow on the room. My computer was still on too, the fan humming softly in the background. It was just the screen that had gone black. I moved the mouse, but nothing happened. I pressed the keyboard, but there was no response. Panic surged in my chest. I tried to shut off the computer by holding the power button, but it refused to turn off. My heart raced, my palms sweating as I frantically searched for a way out of this nightmare. Then, out of the darkness, something appeared on the screen. Slowly, letters began to form, one by one, like a typewriter printing out a message. You shouldn't have come here. I froze, staring at the words as they flickered on the screen. My throat was dry, and my chest tightened with dread. This wasn't normal. This wasn't a prank. My mind scrambled for explanations. Maybe it was a virus. Maybe someone had hacked me. But deep down, I knew this was something else. The words lingered on the screen for a moment before disappearing, replaced by another message. You cannot go back. I could feel my pulse hammering in my ears. I had to get out of this. I had to stop whatever was happening. In a last-ditch effort, I yanked the power cord out of the wall. The screen went dark, and the computer finally shut off. I slumped back in my chair, breathing heavily, my hands shaking. For a moment, I thought I was free. I thought I'd escaped whatever had been trying to reach me through the screen. But I was wrong. So very wrong. I didn't touch my computer for days after that. The memory of the whispers, the words on the screen, they haunted me. I tried to convince myself that it had all been some kind of glitch. Maybe a hacker messing with me for being foolish enough to browse the dark web. But every time I walked past my computer, I felt that same creeping dread wash over me, like something was waiting. It was on the third night that I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing. Groggy and disoriented, I fumbled around in the dark for it, assuming it was just a late-night notification or spam message. But when I looked at the screen, my blood ran cold. It was a text message from an unknown number. The message read, "You shouldn't have left." My breath caught in my throat. I sat up, staring at the screen. My heart pounded so loudly that I could barely think straight. How did they get my number? Was this connected to the website? I couldn't tell. I was too panicked to make sense of it. My phone buzzed again. "You still have time." I wanted to throw my phone across the room, to break it and be done with this nightmare. But I couldn't. It was like I was trapped, caught in the web of whatever I had stumbled into. I tried to block the number, but every time I pressed the option, the phone froze. The messages kept coming. "You must come back. They're waiting for you. Don't turn away." Each message felt more sinister, like a warning wrapped in a command. My hands shook as I powered off my phone and threw it onto the nightstand. I couldn't deal with this. I needed sleep. Maybe it would all stop if I just ignored it, but ignoring it didn't help. The next morning, my computer had turned on by itself. I woke to the low hum of the fan, that familiar sound I'd tried so hard to avoid. At first, I thought I was imagining it, that maybe I was still dreaming. But when I opened my eyes, the screen was glowing, and my heart dropped. The same website was on my screen, the same message flashing across the monitor. "You cannot go back." My pulse quickened as I stared at the words, terror gripping me like a vice. The whispers had returned too, faint but growing louder by the second. I could hear them clearer now, the voices layered on top of each other like some kind of twisted chant. I stood up abruptly, yanking the power cord from the computer once more. The screen went black, but the hum of the fan continued. It didn't stop, no matter how many times I unplugged it. It was as though the computer had become possessed, locked in some kind of cursed loop. Desperation gripped me. I grabbed my phone, intending to call someone, anyone for help. But as soon as I unlocked it, another message awaited me. "We know you're trying to leave." The screen flickered, and I dropped the phone, my heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't just a website anymore. It had spread. It was watching me, following me. And then, the knocking started. It was faint at first, a soft knock, almost like someone tapping gently at the front door. I sat frozen on the edge of my bed, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. I don't know how long I sat there, paralyzed by fear, before I finally forced myself to move. Slowly, I crept toward the door, every instinct screaming at me to stop, to stay hidden. The knocking grew more frantic, pounding against the door like something was desperate to get in. I reached the door and pressed my ear against it, heart pounding in my chest. The knocking stopped. For a moment, I stood there in silence, waiting. I could hear my breath, shaky and uneven, as I tried to make sense of what was happening. Was it all in my head? Was this part of the nightmare that had bled into my waking life? I reached for the doorknob. The phone buzzed again, vibrating on the floor where I'd dropped it. I looked down. Another message. Don't open it. Terror surged through me as I backed away from the door, my hands trembling. The knocking started again, but this time, it wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was angry, violent, as if something was trying to break through. And then, the door began to creak, slowly swinging open. I don't remember what happened next. Days have passed since that night. I'm writing this now because I need someone to know. I need someone to understand what I've done, what I've unleashed. The knocking hasn't stopped. The whispers, they're with me, always. Even when the computer is off. Even when the phone is powered down. They've followed me, crept into every part of my life. I can't go back. Not now. I should have listened to the warnings. I shouldn't have clicked that link.